Good afternoon and welcome to this weekly analysis session for both the US and the Australian markets after the Easter long weekend. So we're planning to have a look at both markets today in the one recording. Hopefully everyone's had a pleasant Easter, good times with their family and haven't eaten too many hot cross buns or too much in the way of chocolate. I know that I certainly had my fair share of chockies over the Easter break. The content of this presentation or any other Elite Traders Club material does not constitute a recommendation, nor does it take into account your investment objectives, your financial situation, or particular needs. As always, before making an investing decision based on the general advice presented in any of our presentations, please consider whether the advice is appropriate in light of your financial circumstances or seek further advice on its appropriateness. All right, so what we'll do today is we'll go through and have a look at both portfolios, the US and the ASX, looking for new setups, trailing of stops, etc., or any orders that may have been cancelled along the way. We'll have a look at the benchmark indices and some specific setups in both of those markets. There won't be any Q&A today, obviously, as this is a recording. All right, the portfolio management model, our benchmarking model, for the time being, the Australian market is still in moderate market risk. So that's a good thing, given that our market for much of the last 12 months has sort of been in the very high range. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means that assuming that you are investing all of your capital into the Australian market and you had a maximum allowable drawdown of 15%, that would mean that in a moderate market risk, we need to apply a 80% market risk multiplier. So if we apply that to our 15% maximum drawdown, that means that we are allowed to have a maximum value at risk limit for the time being of 12%. Okay, so basically an easy way to think of this is if you had $100,000 and you weren't too good at your maths, etc., it really just means that, look, you can have 80% of that $100,000 exposed in the market for the time being. That's a very simple way to look at it. And I think for most people that sort of makes the most amount of sense. If we go through and have a look at the US model, the S&P 1500, our benchmark over there, we're in moderate risk over in the US as well. So again, meaning we apply an 80% market risk multiplier to our maximum allowable drawdown of 15%. Now, the reason I give everybody the alternative here using the 80% is that it's very difficult to create a portfolio using shares without any form of leverage to actually get that full 15% value at risk exposure. So a simpler way of looking at this is just saying, well, look, if I've got a portfolio of X, then really under a moderate market risk, it means I'm allowed to have 80% of X exposed to the market or invested in the market. Okay, so just a nice simple way to think of that. All right, so let's go through to Beyond Charts and have a bit of a look at new setups for this particular week. The market risk, as you can see here, we've just gone over that. For the time being, our S&P 1500 still well between our 60 and 80 as we speak. So from that point of view, still comfortably in the moderate market risk territory as we speak. The ASX, we're in moderate market risk, just rolling over a little bit there. You know, a couple of black candles over the last few days. So it'll be interesting to see how we hold up throughout the course of this particular week. All right, let's go through and see if we've got any new setups for this particular market. Interesting in the scan results over both these markets over the course of the weekend actually threw out quite a number of results, which is interesting. Again, just the market feedback, market talking to us a little bit, telling us about, those stocks that are, exhibiting a good relative strength. So the number of stocks that are exhibiting the right sort of relative strength, and obviously, moving averages moving up in the right sort of direction. It has been increasing over the last few weeks, so that's a positive sign for the markets. So the first stock that we actually have as a new setup is ABC. So I'll just zoom out and see where we are. We're at all-time highs. Again, a very positive sign for stocks at this point in time. particularly in lieu of what our market has done recently. All right, you can see the price action there. That last trough coming in well above that second from last medium-term peak, which is this one here. We're at all-time highs. The last candle there, already moving past that last medium-term peak. That's still okay. It's not too late to get into this particular trade. All we need to do is place an on-stop order. And to do that, we just place an on-stop order 0.5% above that last candle high. The high there, 515. So that means we've got an on-stop order at 518. We also need to put in a protective stop. Our protective stop always needs to be below that last medium-term trough. It needs to be at least 0.5% below that level, but it also needs to be at least 2 ATRs from our specific entry. And so therefore our stop loss is coming in at $4.70. That's ABC. Next stock, ALU, Altium Limited. We'll just zoom out there and see where we are. We're pretty much at all-time highs. The highest point that this really sort of got back to was way back in 2000, nearly 16 years ago. So that's really when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, almost in stock market terms. If we just go through and have a look at the price action here, you'll see moving averages starting to move up, diverging, good relative strength. That last trough that's just been formed by virtue of this short-term uptrend that's now just been confirmed last week. That last medium-term trough well clear of the second from last medium-term peak. So price action is obviously very strong. In this case, we just need to wait for a break of that last medium-term peak. So to do that, we need to place an on-stop order at $5.94, and our stop loss is coming in at $5.23. That's outside of 2 ATRs, so at least 2 ATRs in terms of distance away from our entry level, and at least 0.5% below that last medium-term trough there. That's ALU. The other one setting up in Australia this week is ARF, Arena REIT. So let's just have a look at the price action here. So last week's candle, a higher high and a higher low, so now putting us back into a short-term uptrend. And at the same time, producing a new medium-term trough. That medium-term trough is certainly above that second from last medium-term peak, so it meets our price action filter requirements. And if we zoom out and have a look, you'll see that we are also at all-time highs as well. Good relative strength across the board there. You can see the histograms all above zero for a considerable period of time. So the structure for this particular trade, we just need to break our last medium-term peak, and to do that, we place an on-stop order 0.5% above that medium-term peak high. You'll see there that the high is $2, so 0.5% above that is $2.01. So we have an on-stop order at $2.01 and a stop loss coming in at $1.80. That's more than 2 ATRs away, or at the very least 2 ATRs away from our entry level, and at least 0.5% below our last medium-term trough. All right, so they're the new setups for this particular week. There was one cancellation from last week. That was MBE. We'll have a quick look at that. MBE, Mobile Embrace Limited. And the reason that we're cancelling this particular order is we now have a short-term downtrend. So wherever this new medium-term trough forms, where is that trough in relation to the second from last medium-term peak? So that will be the last medium-term peak. That will be the second from last medium-term peak up here. So it's certainly not going to be above that, and so therefore it invalidates the price action filter. All right, so we'll just close out of that, and we'll go through and have a look at the watch list to see if there's any trades that are progressing nicely at the moment where we've been able to amend their protective stops. GMM, General Mining Corporation, is one. A nice bullish candle last week, and as a result, just dragging its trailing 3 ATR up ever so slightly, and you'll see there 23.5 cents. So our initial protective stop was in at 23.30. Our trailing stop now coming up to 23.50. So just moving up ever so slightly. BWP, which has been in the portfolio for quite a long time, last week, showing a nice strong candle there last week, a higher close, and as a result, just dragging its trailing 3 ATR up ever so slightly as well. And the last one, AOG, Avecho Group, and you'll see, if we just zoom in a little bit closer there, you should be able to see that little green line right at the end there, the trailing stop, again, moving upwards and onwards, which is a positive sign. And last week, gapping up nicely as well. That's on AOG. All right, so we might go across to the US now and have a look at new pending trades for this particular week. We've got one here on CACI. So if we have, first thing we need to think about is, what is our price action filter telling us? Well, is this last trough at or above the second from last medium term peak? There's the last medium term peak, there's the second from last, so we're well clear of that. So the price action is saying yes. This happens to be a long-term peak. Have we had a first test of this long-term peak? Well, let's go through and do the numbers. The value line there, it says the high there is 104.09 cents. So have we come within 1% of that, 104.09? And you can see here that we've come up to 104.03. So 1% of $104 is a dollar. Certainly we're much closer than that. And so this constitutes our first test. We've had a nice shallow retracement, and last week's candle, whilst it could be better, it was a black candle, but it did have a higher high and a higher low, so we're back into short-term uptrend. So should we happen to break this last medium-term peak, then we'll be triggered into the trade and hopefully moving in the right direction. If we just zoom out and see where we are, again, we're at all-time highs. So again, a positive sign for this particular stock, even though last week's candle wasn't perhaps as bullish as we may have liked. It still does meet all the requirements. That's CACI. So now we'll go across and have a look at the existing watch list to see if there's been any stops that have been trailed this particular week. There have been a number this week. PGR is a stock that had its protective stop trailed last week. Reasonable sort of candle, higher high and a higher low, certainly closing higher than the previous week, and as a result just ever so slightly dragging its trailing 3 ATR upwards. So all these details will be in the watch list, so you'll be able to go through and make those adjustments accordingly. TWC, Time Warner Cable, just last week, slightly higher close, and again just ever so slightly dragging its trailing stop up that little bit higher. That one seems to have gone sideways for a long period of time, doesn't it? Really like watching paint dry on that particular one there. And the other one, WDFC. And again, just like last week, that pin bar there, just very, very slightly. If I put on the value line, you can just see ever so slightly. Last week, the trailing stop coming in at 94.26, and last week's candle just taking that up to 94.53. So that's the trail stops in the US. There was one cancellation from the pendings from last week. CVC, I think it was. Let's go through and have a look there. CVC. Again, if we go through and have a look at the price action now, this was in the list last week, so just to reiterate on this particular one, we're now in short-term downtrend. Wherever we happen to form a new medium-term trough, that trough, is it at or above what will then be the second from last medium-term peak? No, it won't be, so it invalidates the price action filter. Other trades that triggered from the previous week, CONE. Triggering in very, very nicely. Nice strong candle, that's what you like to see when you have a new setup there. So certainly powering along very nicely. And the other one for the week, only just triggering in, KEP, Korea Electric Power. So you'll see there, that last candle, very much a doji, and I'll just move that out of the way. So we had a non-stop order at 25.61, and the high there 25.68. So just triggering us into that particular order, so that will also go into the watch list as well. That's about it for this particular week. Friday, at this particular stage, it looks like Friday I may have to do a recording for the Australian market. So I'll certainly have that out to everybody well and truly to look at over the course of the weekend. All right, as always, if you've got any questions or like to touch base, don't be a stranger. Feel free to pick up the phone, give us a call, or shoot me a quick email. All right, best of luck with your investing and trading. Bye for now.